This video is all about proper lifting techniques, the do's, the don'ts, the different styles in which we can lift objects, as well as some of the movements in a gym facility that might help to prevent injuries or reduce the likelihood of injuries related to improper lifting. So the do's that we want to focus on when lifting is to maintain a good straight back position and to really get the lifts established from the legs themselves. And keeping the load close to the body and using the legs to lift. For instance, getting down into a squat position, bringing the load close to the body and using the legs to stand up is one of the techniques we can use. What we don't want to see, however, is a rounding of the back and lowering or lifting weight up. We're not looking for the spine to flex with heavy loads. It may be okay when picking a small object that's very light off the ground. In fact, you might want to actually encourage flexion of the spine to lift a piece of paper or your car keys off the ground. But when it comes to a heavy load, we want to maintain a nice straight back position. Squatting is definitely one of those movements that we can achieve. Another technique would be to stagger your stance so that you are in a forward and backward leg position, keeping the load close to your body again, standing on up, primarily using the forward leg and the back leg simultaneously to lift, whereas the forward leg is doing a lot more of the force, the back foot pushing up, but not with as much help as the forward leg. Another way to handle this is to, again, place yourself in this split position and use your arm or your hand to help support while you do the lift, and then also lowering back down again. Having that hand there will help maintain some good spine alignment, straight back position, while not putting a lot of strain through your lower back. You can have it with your elbow or hand, whatever is most comfortable. Another way to do a proper lift would be to balance on one leg, similar to how a golfer lifts the ball out of the cup at the end of each round. You can lift one foot off the ground, grab onto the load, and then use the back leg as a cantilever or a counterweight to help bring the body back up. And then in lowering back down, lifting that leg, keeping the back straight. Other things you want to avoid are lifting on an unstable surface. So you want to make sure you have stable footing and there's nothing too slick or slippery underneath. Be sure to position your feet appropriately when lifting. Another don't on the list would be to keep the load away from your body. So if I were to try and lift this weight, I don't want to keep it out in front of me because instantly it actually goes right into my lower back. I might hug that object right inward and then do the lifting. As soon as this weight comes away from the body, a lot more pressure is applied to the lower back. There is another way that you could lift safely, and that is more of a deadlifting sort of form, where you're simply going to hinge at the hip joint with a soft bend to the knees, pushing the hips back and keeping the back flat, grabbing the object, keeping it close to your body, in fact, in between both feet, and lifting up in that fashion. The one drawback with that is that a lot of people are very restricted in certain muscles that may need to lengthen to accommodate that movement, such as the hamstring muscles. So if you were to be more inclined to do the deadlifting lift, we want to make sure that your body is in the appropriate state, flexibility and pliability in which to accommodate the movement properly. To assess that, you can just have your feet side by side, knees fairly straight, keep your back straight, and see if you can just simply come down with your back straight and touch your toes. If you're able to do that without curling through your back or flexing through the lower back, and you are able to do that without your hips going up and down, but stay at the same height while hinging and touching, then you're pretty set up to do a deadlift style lift with weights. I would caution that a small percentage of people will actually fall into that category. For most of us, we'll want to bend into the knees in a squatting fashion or a split stance and lift from that position. Here are some gym-based actions that you could start to practice in your own conditioning program to help reduce the likelihood of injury when it comes to lifting objects off the ground. The first being a deadlift. Having a weight that's positioned between both heels, such as this kettlebell, you're going to just hinge at the hips with a soft bend to your knees, reach down and grab the handle of a kettlebell, and simply lift up to a tall posture. And then as you lower back down, you're going to pull the weight in between the feet so that the weight comes down right in between the heels. If the weight is forward toward the toes or in front of the feet, then instantly the work is going to be directed toward the lower back. So we want to make sure that the weight is between the heels when performing this kettlebell deadlift. Stand up and then lower back down. The squat is a fantastic movement to really work on proper lifting techniques. We'll just use this kettlebell once more. I could maintain this nice upright torso position, thinking if I had a cup of water on the top of my head, simply keeping the weight close to my body, lifting up and lowering back down. What you'll find from a profile is that my hips and shoulders should lower at the same rate, and the angle of my back should maintain a fairly parallel position with my shins at the downward position here, and we don't see any flexing in my spine. We could change this and give it a variety or a different element, which is a pulling action as we squat. So I might take a sandbag and have it be in front of me, but lift it up and then lower back down. So as I lift, I could be pulling it toward me at the same time. Swinging it out, lower down, and as I stand, I bring it toward me. A staggered squat position, where one foot is forward, one foot is back, in a split-like fashion, keeping the weight close to my body, lifting up, and coming back down. I could make it more intense by bringing the weight up higher so that now I'm more top-heavy, making for a lot more required stability in my legs and midsection. I could take that load and go up higher by bringing it up upon my shoulder and doing the same action, lowering down, maintaining a nice tall posture, and going back up. We can also use a landmine for proper lifting technique. Getting down into a squat position, keeping the weight close to the body, and lifting up in that manner. We can do it in a split stance or split squat, holding on to that, coming down, whether with the hand on the knee or free, or both hands on the object, and lifting up. And then there is the single leg deadlift, where we can balance primarily on the outside leg, holding the end of the barbell with the hand closest to the anchored point, lowering down, and lifting up again. So we have the deadlift, the squat, the split squat, the single leg deadlift, and we can use all of these various tools to help create a change in load, whether it be a medicine ball, a sandbag, a kettlebell, a landmine, or even dumbbells. We're going to try and keep the load close to our body no matter what the lift is. We may be pulling in with cables as we squat, or kettlebells, or sandbags, but the key is as we're squatting, the weight is being drawn toward our center.